Hello and welcome to the Blessings in the Streets podcast. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts, and in studio with me today is a phenomenal brother that I've had the pleasure of knowing for a number of years. This brother is a father, he's a husband. Most importantly, he's a man of God, and he is just a creative talent. I mean, everything from acting coach to acting, writing, producing, directing. The brother will sing your socks off. I had a pleasure of even busting a few songs with him. I tried at least, but this brother got some chops on him in that regard as well. Just a true creative talent that is doing it the right way, operating in his purpose and trying to pour that same insight and knowledge into others who aspire to go down those similar paths and doing it the right way. He's just a pleasure to meet, a pleasure to know, and I'm honored that he's taken time out of his busy schedule to hang out with us for a little while this evening to share a little bit about his journey, his story, with the hopes of encouraging and inspiring others, particularly as we go through our challenging and adverse moments of life. So it is my privilege and honor to introduce to you my brother, my friend, Mr. Calvin Walker. Calvin, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having me, bro. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So before we jump into our segments, I do want our audience to have an opportunity to know a little bit about you, where you're from, what you do, just kind of give them a taste of who is Calvin Walker.
Sure. So, where I'm from, hometown-wise, is Lubbock, Texas, in the good old Panhandle. I currently reside in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. The city is so small that when people ask me where I'm from, I just say Dallas because they never understand where my little town is. I am a creative. That's what I love to do. I'm a filmmaker, writer, director, acting coach, producer, playwright. And I've been doing that for all of my life. But, in a targeted professional way around the last 13, 14 years. I've been doing that. So all of that aside, I am, blessed to be, blessed to be a family man, blessed to have a wonderful family that gets all of my love and all of my money. Yeah, that's who I am in a nutshell.
All right. Well, again, ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat this evening. As this brother stated, he's a creative and so well-rounded and definitely a family man. I've had the pleasure of meeting both his wife and his kids and on multiple occasions, just like all around good brother. So I'm excited and I'm not going to hold us up any longer. We're going to jump right into this and learning more about him. So, Calvin, I'm a firm believer that when we talk about our journeys, when we talk about our stories, we really can't capture the full essence of that story without going back to where it all began. So that's exactly where we're going to start this evening from the beginning. So my question for you is, I would like for you to kind of think back to the childhood days, your upbringing, and if you would share with us, what was it like for you growing up? Fond memories that you have about growing up, as well as if there was any challenges that you had to deal with in growing up as well. Feel free to share that as well. Kind of give us that foundational basis, the starting point of where your journey begins.
Yeah. As I mentioned, I am from Lubbock, Texas. If you don't know where Lubbock is, I'm from where Texas Tech is. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, no, Lubbock is. I'm like, Red Raiders? Oh, Texas Tech. Like, yes. So Texas Tech is a school inside of the city. It's not the name of the actual city. So I'm from Lubbock. And I have two incredible parents, Calvin and Camille Walker. I'm not a junior, I am a second. They were very specific about that. My daddy's name is Calvin Lee, and I'm Calvin Joseph, namesake of my uncle, Uncle Joe. I have an awesome big sister. I am the baby of our 4-person unit. And life in Lubbock was simple, interesting at times, but pretty straightforward. We were raised in a, very quiet neighborhood. I went to the first elementary that I went to was around the corner from my grandmother's home, and my grandfather's home. And to like even begin talking about my childhood, I I guess it's probably best to start with my grandmother, Beatrice Parker Walker, who was I had two best friends growing up. My mom, who was still with us, and my grandmother. I was her shadow. And where she went, I went. It was one of those things where, people have, say, Elijah and Elisha, they tend to use that kind of coupling of, these strong, generational bonds or intergenerational bonds, if you will. And for me, that was my grandmother. She had a way of seeing me and understanding me that nobody else quite did. And I think that comes with the time, right? To see someone, oftentimes grandparents are able to see their grandchildren in a finer point than sometimes the parents can see the children. Or sometimes the grandparents saw their kids, because there is a lack of pressure, right? As parents, we focus on provision. We want to provide emotionally, provide financially, do all the providing. Like that is oftentimes the focus. And in being so focused on that, we tend to sometimes see past the heart of our children, not intentionally, but we're so dead set on getting all the provision stuff right that sometimes the heart stuff is missed. And sometimes grandparents, because their obligation is not primarily provision, though, God knows grandparents help. They're able to spend time investigating the heart of these children and getting to know the heart of the kids, because they're able to be free from the pressure of providing. And so my grandmother saw me very clearly at a really young age, and I was blessed to have that. I was nosy as a child. That's where Zoe gets it from. Always wanting to know who was doing what and what were they doing. And so my grandparents prayed every day at noon. And so one day I went and I knocked on the door and I said, "What y'all doing?" I said, "Come on in here." I was like, "Okay, cool." And so I, got on my little knees, and I'm from the Church of God in Christ. I'm from the Pentecostal tradition. And so we're a rowdy bunch. And so she set me by the bed and said, "Say thank you, Jesus." And so they were praying, and I'm like, "Thank you, Jesus." Say it louder, Captain Jack. "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus." Like that was the thing. And so I thought that I was done after the first day I had experienced it. I figured out what they were doing. I'd accomplished all of my goals. And the next day, she was like, "Time for prayer." I'm like, "Oh, I wasn't trying to invite myself to your event continuously. I just wanted to know what you were doing." He said, "Oh no, you got to come in here for prayer." I'm like, but the other children are outside playing. I don't know why they are not also in here. That I know my cousins, they really need the Lord. I'm pretty tame compared to them. And for 5 summers, from being 6 to 11, every day at noon. Everybody else was out doing their thing, but me, there was no choice. You did it. And she grounded me in a real sense of spiritual understanding that served me really well, especially as I was growing up and having to kind of traverse through the religious dogma that I had to deal with and the church politics of it all. Knowing that I'd had experiences, spiritual experiences at a young age that were pure. And they didn't come by way of weird religious systems or, weird submission treaties when it comes to leadership. You got to do this and you got to da. But my foundation was, thank you, Jesus. My foundation was rooted in simplicity, in gratitude, and in purity. And that was because of her. And so that is kind of the basis of my childhood. So it's her and it's my grandfather, Deacon Walker, who they were, superstars in Texas Northwest jurisdiction, where I grew up. Preachers would come out of town and they would stay at my grandparents' home. They were always hospitable. Even if there was nothing to be had, they found a way to make it. They were just those people who knew how to survive and how to survive with grace, and how to do it in a way that they made it look easy. They made it look like they weren't trying. And it was just the most beautiful thing to see. So with that said, my grandmother passed when I was 11 years old. And that was one of the most difficult things that I've ever had to deal with. I grieved her actively for around 23 years. I did not know how to process. I didn't know what to do with my grief. It was very hard to understand. And when you're a child, nobody teaches you to grieve. My father was going through his own grief process. It was his mom. And he didn't know how to teach me to grieve because he was learning himself. My mother had recently lost her grandmother, who was actually her mother figure. My mom's mom passed whenever she was very young, so she was raised by her grandmother. So there was this cycle of loss happening around me, and my parents were doing the best they could, but there was nobody who was really available to tell you this is how you get through it. And so at the age of 11, my grandmother passed. I'll never forget. The day before she passed, I left. I'd given her a hug and walked out of her house because I would go to her house after school and wait for my parents. Got in the car and I said, I need to give her another hug. Got out the car. And I gave her one last hug because I just felt like I need to do it one more time. I didn't know why. The next morning, I was woken by loud footsteps in my household and the door slamming. And I went to my mom and I said, hey, is everything okay? She said, yes, fine, baby. I said, okay. So I went to the caller ID back when they were just like little small boxes. Mm-hmm. And I went to the last number called, and it said Roosevelt Walker on the display. And I went to my mother and I said, your mommy died, didn't she? And she said, how'd you know? I said, she died, didn't she? He said, yes, she did, baby. She's gone. That was the depth of relationship that I had with her. Mm-hmm. Is that I innately knew that she was no longer here. And I was blessed to be able to get a double portion of love the day before.
Wow.
And so my childhood is this kind of weird cornucopia of beautiful spiritual moments and a lot of interesting trauma that kind of comes along with certain things. Lubbock is it was segregated in its own way at the time. You know, I think when we talk about segregation, we kind of automatically go to coloreds only, white only, Jim Crow segregation, and we don't necessarily kind of realize what segregation looked like in the 90s and what it still looks like now. Um, and so there were black spaces and there were white spaces. And you had intersections, of course, but it wasn't as collegial amongst everybody, and it wasn't as, intermixed, especially from an education standpoint. So my first school I went to, I told my parents when I was in third grade, this is too easy for me. I need to be challenged. I was getting done quickly. There was no challenge there. And my parents listened. They said, okay, all right, CJ, we'll move you. And I went to a magnet school where I want to say, one of 3 black kids in my grade level, probably one of 10 or 15 black kids in the school building. And it was interesting to be kind of viewed as the spectacular Negro in this white space. I remember my first year, back when they had TOS tests. I did my English stuff and I'd written it and I'd gotten a 4 on it. And they're like, oh my God, Calvin, this is so amazing. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Fantastic. Like, you are really advanced. That's why I asked to come here. Still wanted someplace to challenge me, but this is lightweight. This isn't anything special. This is me. I remember being, this is during the Will Smith, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air time. And so I used to love Carlton, and I love the Carlton dance. It's not unusual to love it. And I did it at school, and I remember for the 3 years I was there, my teachers, come on, Calvin, do the Carlton dance. And I thought, in retrospect, it's just like, what was I doing in that moment? Was I performing this kind of act of palatable blackness in front of these white people? Was I just being myself? Like, was there a bit of a mix of both? And that, what does a kid understand about race? Like, really kind of in the complexities of what it looks like inside of structures. I was blessed that my dad was a history teacher. And so, whereas so many people who, in my age or older, just like learning their history, I'm just like, I was raised with this. My father made sure we knew Black history. He made sure you were very, very equipped to, have, small race conversations. You probably ain't going to do a whole lot of, deep dives as a 10-year-old. But when I went to my new school, my white school, just to be frank, the first year I said, hey, you know about Kwanzaa? He said, no, it's a Kwanzaa. I said, no problem. I wrote a play. That was my first play that I wrote in 4th grade. Because my father had been writing Black history plays and been putting them on in his school for years. And I was like, I'm going to do what Daddy does, and I'm going to write a play to educate my wonderful white and brown friends about my culture. And I had my dad come. He brought some of the students. They wore, their African garb, and and we did this play. Me and one of the other black boys in my class, and said, "You're gonna be in my play because you black. You're gonna be in my play." And we had this great conversational piece around Kwanzaa, and my dad did a talk back from my class. And it was one of those moments that really kind of shaped the idea of who I am as a person. I'm going to go into spaces where Black people don't usually get invited, and I'm going to teach about race. I'm going to teach about culture through the arts because my father had given me that template. He had given me the permission to do it by watching him. And that's something that I've learned, that as parents, we are the ones who give our children permission to dream, to consider, to investigate, or to be to stifle ourselves. We give them permission to doubt themselves when we do that in front of them. We are the ones who are consistently permitting them to create a pattern for their lives by how they look at us and how they see us. It wasn't cool to be dark-skinned in the 90s in certain places. Lubbock was one of those places. And obviously, the good Lord hath not made me high yellow. He has made me real dark. And that was hard. It was hard. It's called ugly a lot. I was always a big boy, so they used to sing, da na 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 na. That boy can't touch this. And I was always a very sensitive soul, which in other areas in my life got me in trouble. Because that wasn't manly enough. That wasn't, you gotta be a big boy. Okay. So if someone inflicts trauma on me, I should not feel it. If they say something that hurts me, I should not acknowledge it, because being a big boy, being manly, is to not acknowledge the pain. Mm-hmm. Got it. Understood. And so a lot of my life, a lot of my youth was teaching myself to suppress, because suppression was, the highest, level of manliness. Men don't feel. And if you were vulnerable, that was feminine, that was woman stuff. But I was a kid who tried to lose weight and failed at it. And so I was still fat, I was still Black, and I was still ugly. And I was told that throughout my childhood. So much so that into my 30s, into my todays, that is still something that I deal with and that I struggle with is, am I enough? Because I was always told that I wasn't in regards to looks. And so when you are not one thing, you figure out what other thing you are, and that thing becomes your superpower. There are people who say, if blind people's hearing is amazing, and their sense of smell is amazing, there's this idea that if there is a sense that you have less of, that the other senses make up for it in a way, right? There's this recalibration. And so I became, my intellect was sharp as a tack. So he may not be the cutest thing in the world, but he's smart. That's a smart black boy. I knew that was the thing that for me could still get me in the room. I was witty. I read. I was well read. And I understood how to use that to my advantage when I felt like the other part of me, the physical part of me, didn't belong in the room. I knew that my mind did. And that became how I navigated spaces, is by leading with my intellect, leading with the wit, leading with the humor, and also being very curious. I didn't like kids when I was growing up. I was never one of the people that wanted to be around a whole lot of kids. I wanted to be where the adults were. And not because I wanted to, have these overly adult conversations, but it was this, you guys are talking about interesting stuff, whether it be politics or, my thing, which is race and gender politics. Like that is, you give me a room talking about race and gender, I am happy. I can talk to you for hours. And I wanted to be in those conversations. I wanted to hear that stuff because to me, that was the stuff that mattered. My father had introduced me to Baldwin. Daddy introduced me to Hughes when I was about 6 or 7. Excuse me. So I want to say I too was my first Hughes piece. And when he introduced me to Langston, I was just like, "Oh, this is it. Oh, this is the ball game." And then getting introduced to more figures from the Harlem Renaissance era, from Zora Neale Hurston, and all those folks, Lorraine Hansberry. When I got introduced to Baldwin in high school, that was the end of the game. These are the kind of conversations that I want to be in. This is the kind of work that I want to engage in because it is causing people to have to consider and reconsider what they understand to be true. It is causing people to have to sit with their uncomfortability and make them ask themselves, why do you believe what you believe? Why do you think that that's true? And it's not enough for mama to say or daddy to say, no, what say you? Because whenever you're by yourself, that's going to be the thing that's going to have to ground you, that without a shadow of a doubt what you know. And Baldwin and those kinds of writers were so integral in helping me understand that. And Tudor Bismarck and those kind of teachers were integral in helping me understand that. Because in Pentecostal churches, you have certain people, God love them, who have been trained to say amen, but not trained to hear what they're saying amen to. Mm. And so I was growing up in spaces where the preacher had a fan club, but the congregation was dumb. Mm. And I was always the Sour Patch Kid, like, CJ, you never, because you ain't talking about nothing. Because I was raised with Beatrice Parker Walker, and my grandmother, she would go to churches, she would do what she needed to do, but if he wasn't saying nothing, she never amen, because she understood the power of amen. Amen says, I'm agreeing with you. Amen says, let it be. How can I say, let it be, if what you're saying is not based on the truth? And so my childhood, my beginnings was based around this idea of this woman, Beatrice Parker Walker, helped me understand to never agree with something that was not true. and that the spirit had nothing to do with them people up there in that building, but it had everything to do with what was in here. And I had a father who gave me permission to dream. He also wanted me to be a football player, and so we had some problems there. I didn't dream that dream, unfortunately. I had a mother who was incredible. I'm almost amazing. My dad went back to school in his late 30s, and mommy was working as an accountant. My mom worked. She would come home, she would cook, and then she would stay up some nights and type up my dad's papers. My dad would write his papers by hand, and she would stay up at the typewriter and type his papers. And I would sit beside her some nights with a little whiteout, and I would help. As she was doing, my mother carried our family while my father was going back to build legacy for our family, and they did it so beautifully. That's what I grew up with. That's what made me, and it wasn't always easy. As a child, whenever you look at your parents' decisions, you see them as a child, and so some things in the moment I was just like, ugh. Get me out of here. I don't like these people at all. They don't know anything about being parents. They stink. Like there was a movie called North where this little boy divorced his parents and said, I'm gonna divorce these people. They don't know what they're doing. They knew exactly what they were doing. But again, as a kid, you don't think about all the other factors that come into play when you're trying to provide for somebody. And my parents just did an amazing job of giving us tools. Nobody's perfect, but they gave us tools. And they did their best to show up how they could, when they could. My parents were pioneers for me in the sense that after I told you I had an issue with some grief problems, they put me in therapy when I was 15, 16. And not in my son is crazy, but it's like my son needs somebody to talk to. And in church, that was a no-no. Mm-hmm. It was like, you got to cast it out. I was like, well, first of all, you don't touch me because I don't think you can cast anything. You're not allowed to touch me because I don't know what you're going to put in me. Secondly, there is wisdom in counsel. Mm-hmm. And it's so funny how people look at scripture in this confined way that only applies to church spaces without understanding that these are principles that can be used throughout life. If there is good counsel, there is wisdom in that counsel. Go sit on some good counseling. Go talk out some things. Go consider some things. Go strategize some things with some people who have the wisdom to help you out. And my parents gave me that gift. They didn't, send me to the altar and, tell me to, just pray about it. We did that. But they also gave me an outlet to speak and to share. And that was, it was important. Last thing I'll say, I'm sorry if I'm going too long, is I was, for better or for worse, I had aunts, specifically aunts, and my cousin, who may as well be my aunt, Vicky, who gave me space to speak. They gave me an opportunity to speak. Sometimes people don't want to hear what I had to say, but they gave me the ability to do it. I feel like my oldest daughter, Melody, My friends always say, Calvin, who is this child? My baby. Oh my gosh. We didn't talk like this when we were her age. If anybody ever talks to Mel Bell, it's just like you're talking to a whole 25-year-old. She's going to have, she's going to cite her sources. She's going to have the reason why she believes the thing. She will have a good counterpoint for you. Always. Because that is how we trained her. It took a second to kind of, because as a parent, especially as a Black parent, there's this idea of a child's place, right? You got to stay in a child's place. And it's like, where is the child's place? And oftentimes that place is silent. Oftentimes that place is, hushed in the back with the kids' table. And so you leave these children who have questions and need answers alone with themselves and their questions. And so the person who is best equipped to answer the questions and lead them through their curious stages is telling them, oh, just shut up. Oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You need to hush. That's grown folks' business. Well, one day they're going to be grown folks. One day they're going to be an adult. And wouldn't it be beautiful that when they became an adult, they were prepared to be an adult versus stumbling through their 20s like a lot of folks did. A lot of folks didn't have language for how they felt. They didn't have language to have conversation because they were not encouraged to converse in the home. And I was blessed to have educators, Stacey Bennett, Cindy Wilson, aunts, who allowed me to have conversations, to be in conversation, to ask questions, to know now, Calvin, you stepping over the line, and this is why you're stepping over the line. That's not for you to know now. But it wasn't shut up. It wasn't hush up. It was, I see that you're curious, and I see that you have something to say. And so I'm going to empower you to be curious, to speak the truth. When you're wrong, I'll tell you that you're wrong. And when you need more understanding, I'll tell you that you need more understanding, and I'll point you in a direction to do so. Educators, Gail Totino, there are so many incredible people who gave me the space to figure out my voice before I turned 18. So when I turned 18, and 18 was a rough year, bad year. When I turned 18, when it came to communicating, I was able to do it. I was able to communicate with people. When it came to understanding what I wanted, that took me a little bit longer because that stuff kind of got shut down because those kinds of conversations aren't being had in our households. When Jesus is 12, Jesus goes to the tabernacle after he's bar mitzvahed. They try to find him. And he says, don't you know that I need to be doing my Father's business? Like, you should know this by now. A 12-year-old. Can you imagine one of our 12-year-olds saying that to us? We would say, how dare you? You're talking back. Who do you think you're talking to? But there is a blueprint there that at 12, after he was bar mitzvahed, he had such an understanding of purpose, the ability to articulate what he felt and what he needed. And his parents were able to respect the articulation, however, still bring him under. But now listen, I get it, but this is what needs to happen first. So you're not wrong, but let me help you get right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Ooh. Mm. I mean, what a powerful foundational basis to your journey. I mean, so much that you said, and I'm not speaking of that in terms of the length that you spent. I mean, it was definitely well worth listening to. That's why I didn't
Yes.
stop you. Um, so much things that I was relating to in my own personal life, and just the powerful lessons of points that you brought up. I mean, everything from how we parent, that the difference between parenting by way of provision versus parenting by way of speaking to one's heart, and how you described how in your case your grandmother spoke to your heart. She was able to develop that to work in what's inside of you, because she didn't have to worry about the direct responsibility of the provision
Mhm.
part. That was for the parents to worry about. But then even on your parents' side, yes, they did their provision part, but they didn't get so consumed in the provision part that they forgot to impart and put into you, whether it be knowledge, whether it be just instilling you your belief systems, and strengthening your core of who you are going to be and how you should conduct yourself, and as you stated multiple times, the permission to dream, the permission to be expressive, the permission to articulate. And I think when you can strike that perfect balance, all of those things can happen, and you can still, as they say, stay in a child's place, meaning you're not disrespectful, you're not out of line, but you're not limited, you're not restricted at the same time, to where in a blink of an eye we look up and you're an adult and you don't know how to function.
Yeah.
You don't know how to navigate, because all the opportunities that were there to teach you how to do it, you were always silenced. It was always no, you know. Another thing that you pointed out, so powerful, and I've had a chance over this past couple of years to really delve into that a lot more. And this is something that's particularly with men, the whole thing about men not being able to express themselves,
Hmm.
because we've learned over all of these years, for decades, that when you show sensitivity, when you show feeling, when you show remorse, when you show grief, that means you're soft.
Yeah.
You're a punk. You're acting weak. That's what girls do. Men don't do that. We tough it out. We suck it up, not understanding the damage that we've done to men over the years
Yeah.
in that way, because of that teaching. Like, as if men somehow don't experience sadness and grief, that there should be some shame in a man shedding tears,
Hmm.
that there should be some shame in a man feeling vulnerable and weak in certain moments of life. And that is totally untrue. And that's one of those myths that we need to continue to dispel,
Yes.
because there's a lot of hurting men, and as you said, well into their 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, even plus,
Yeah.
that never got a chance to let it out. They were forced to suppress, and they've been carrying that weight on in their hearts and in their minds for years, killing themselves slowly.
Hmm.
Not
Yeah.
just feeling bad, having a bad day, like literally taking life from them, because they never had a
Absolutely.
chance to dump, to unload, to have that space to do that. And so to hear you speak to that, and knowing that your parents, even as you were grieving, going through the grieving process with your grandmother, recognizing the fact that yes, we are a faith-based family, we are a God-loving family, but we also understand that God has instilled gifts and skill sets and talents in people who can take that same godly foundation, but be somebody that I can reach out to, and
Hmm.
again, have a conversation with. That it
Yeah.
doesn't always have to be just limited to, well, you just say a prayer about it and then just let it go. Yeah, that's part. The prayer is part of it,
Yeah.
but sometimes you just need to talk to somebody.
Listen.
It's like faith. It's like you and I. Sometimes I just need, if I'm going through as a man, whatever that is. Sometimes I need another man that I can just talk to, and not worry about is it is going to be a judgment zone. Not worrying about if I'm going to be laughed at or ridiculed or mocked because I'm being too soft, being too feminine acting, or whatever the world wants to identify that as being. I need to be able to have that space, and so I'm thankful that you were able to have that space. I'm thankful that you've even imparted many of these same lessons that you got from your grandmother and your parents, and you're imparting them into your own children, and you're seeing the evidence of what that power is in that. And then the other thing I wanted to point out too is I love the fact that you said, you know, I had to tap into, or I learned, I should say, to tap into what my strengths were. Because you talked about being teased because of your weight, teased because of the darkness of your skin, and it's very easy in those moments to let things like that, really get us down, get the best of us, having us feel, without value, without worth, thinking that we're not, deserving of being in certain rooms and places and spaces. And you said, you know what? Um, I know I got some things about myself that are strong points. And I never heard you say that, even as much as it hurt you to hear some of the things that people might have said about your weight and your skin color. I never heard you say that you ever fully embraced that as being truth. You just said, look, if they're going to hold this against me from keeping out of the room, before I let them do that, I'm going to hit them with something else. I'm going to hit them. And I don't know if you paid attention to our title for the night, for your show, From Believing Myths to Unexpected Gifts. I'm going to hit them with something they don't think I got going on about me. I'm going to walk in the room with that. And when I hit them with that, the jokes that they thought that they were going to throw at me, the insults that they thought that they were going to hurl at me, they're not going to even be able to even focus on that, because they're going to be so overwhelmed with my intellect. They're going to be so overwhelmed with my creative. They're going to be so overwhelmed with just my know-how of how to navigate this space, and my insight on a variety and multitude of topics that they're going to forget about what they think is unattractive, what they think, is, outside of what the worldly norms say you should be. Because at the end of the day, you can call you a darky, you can call you big, whatever. You're still a man with a beautiful wife and beautiful children. So somebody saw value in you. And I'm sure that's not the only somebody that saw value in you. But nevertheless, you defied what the world considered to be the odds, the unlikelihood of these things happening for you. And you're doing all of that and then some. You're exceeding above and beyond all of those things. You're dispelling the myths that are out there, the stereotypes that are out there. And that's what I love about just what you're, just even in the beginning of your story, how you're hitting all of those points, because they're so, so important. And then, just like I said, there were just some relatable things, close relationship with your grandmother. I too had a very, very close relationship with my grandmother. My grandmother was very much a praying grandmother. So I totally identify with that. Even just something as simple as you speaking about your middle name being Joseph, and of course my name is Joseph, but the fact that your middle name comes from your uncle. I was named after my uncle.
Oh, shut up.
So it's just crazy that you say that, so just the different things that you connect with. And I mean, even to the early educational experiences, I can recall in that early stages up to third grade, school being boring to me because I wasn't being challenged. And just like you, it required my mom to relocate me to another school, a magnet school, where I could finally be challenged, where I could finally be around some kids who were gonna, who now I wasn't the smart kid in the room. Now I had to kind of hold my own and do my thing and show my worth, and again, and grow and learn from those experiences. So that's just a sidebar, just some of the things that you spoke to, I've personally dealt with as well. So I totally relate to that. And but just, man, it's just a beautiful beginning to who you are and your journey. And I'm sure you can already attest to this. This was not by accident. This was divine.
Yeah.
It was supposed to work itself out like this. Just in thinking of the way that the things that you're doing right now in life. If these experiences, if this journey doesn't start off like this, you're not where you are, where you are right now. And more importantly, you're not able to relate the same way to people. That's why people, and I know about you because I've had a chance to personally meet you and follow you. But for my listeners, if you haven't had a chance to check this brother out and seen some of the works that he does, and just paid attention to the feedback, the commentary, if you will, from the people, that the lives that you've touched, they're saying what they're saying for a reason, not just to be flattering, not to just say nice things. You are making a difference in their lives. You are impacting. And that's why I said at the top of the show, in your creative space, you're not just in the acting space, in the creative space, in the directing space, in that space just to be doing something, just to make a buck. You are passionate about it. And even in your teaching and coaching side of it, you're trying to emphasize and tell people how to do it the right way, in the truth. And, in the accuracy of it all, in the sincerity of it all, in the authenticity of it all. And that's what makes what you do and how you do it so special. So I appreciate that so much. And, and one last thing, like I said, it's so much, man, that you shared. It really hit me when you talked about the day before your grandmother passed, and how you had that last moment of feeling like I need to give her another hug. I was the last person to see my grandmother alive, and I remember that day vividly. I remember her crying that day. And it was kind of unexpected, and she was just saying, I'm tired. I'm tired. She just kept saying, I'm tired. And then I remember consoling her and trying to comfort her and not really understanding why she was saying I'm tired. But in that moment, it was a prelude to what would happen just a few days later. And even the night that it happened, which is a whole nother story that I won't get into. I actually talk about it in my book, share that story about how the connection between my grandmother and I happened in the most unusual circumstances. But it led me to finding out unexpectedly that evening in the weirdest of ways, led to me finding out that she had passed. But it was what preceded that was just so out of the box. Anybody if had read the story or would hear me tell it, you would think I was making it up. That it happened like that literally happened in the course of me actually being on a date and me cutting the date short because something had come over me saying, you need to go, and I need to go to my mom's house. I don't know why, but I need to go. And in going, I find out. It was literally all happening in this moment. And at that time, I thought it was a crazy thing, but it was, again, that divine intervention, that connection that came over me. And so I totally connect with you and what you're saying with that bond with grandmother, because that's just a special thing to have when you have those relationships and a grandmother being like a best friend. Because she was like a best friend to me as well as my mom was. So totally relate to that, man. So appreciate you sharing that. So powerful. When I should say, as we go through our journeys in life, you've shared quite a bit about your, just the beginnings part of it, and you've even shared a very challenging moment, one in particular with your grandmother. And I don't know if that was a story that you perhaps want to discuss more about or not, but one of the things in life, as you know, and I know, there are going to be storms that come across our path that hit a little different. They hit a little heavier than the normal type of storms. And we might have doubts. We may have worries. We may have fears as to how am I going to get up out of this? How am I going to overcome this? So if you would tell us about a time. And again, it may be something you've already shared or led into a little bit, but tell us about a time when you felt that you were in that moment. Like, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this. I don't know how I'm gonna get over this, out of this situation. It's weighing very heavy on me, even with all my faith and my prayer life and being it the way that it is. I'm not seeing a way out. Obviously, you're here today, so we can trust and believe that you worked your way through it. But what would be that story that you would share with us that has you in that scenario, and what was that kind of that turning point that you felt like you were starting to come up out of such a situation?
Yeah. When you shared that, when talk about something of that vein, the first thing that came to my mind, I said, "Oh no, man, we ain't gonna talk about that." But I think we are. Firstly, let me say this: it is such a blessing to know you, brother. It's a blessing to know you. There are a lot of people who present one way, and they put on a facade. But since I first met you, you've been the absolute same. And just from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being so consistent and so genuine and so much yourself. Um, and I say that because if you were not, I would not be telling this story. It would take somebody like you to pull this trigger. Um, when I was 18 on December 1st, 2006, 2005, I was diagnosed with HIV. was 18 years old, and I went to college, and I acted a fool. I mean, a plum fool. It was bad. God, it was a lot. I remember that summer, getting on a dating app, and the spirit, there was a section of the app that said, HIV status. And I was going up at negative, and the spirit said, you better watch out. Because if you keep doing what you're doing, you're playing fast and loose, that ain't going to be the case. And I said, nope, I ain't trying to hear that. I'm 18 years old. That's not going to happen. So I had met Ray maybe once or twice at that time, in that later part of the semester. And it was after Thanksgiving break, and she came and found me. And she said, hey, I went to see my ex-boyfriend, and his mom gave me a word for a friend of mine. And after she finished the word, I know I don't know you that well, but I'm pretty sure that it was for you. And she began to share this word about some of the things that were happening in my life currently. And the last thing she said is, you need to go get checked. I said, I got it. I said, see, whenever I didn't even have to go get checked. It was like, yep. And so on December 1st, 2005, I went to the campus center. It was, ironically, no, it was, I want to say November 28th. I went to the campus center. My best friend went with me. We got tested together. He got a call that said everything was fine. I got a call that said come in. And so I knew. And I sat in that woman's chair, and she said, well, now, Calvin, this is what we did. We took a test for viruses. And so it just shows that you're positive for a virus. It could be anything, possibly. And I said, okay, all right. But I knew. And so I said I was going to fast, and I was going to pray, and I was going, I wasn't going to eat nothing. It's going to be done with. And a week later, it confirmed that I was HIV positive. And it was one of the scariest periods of my life. I went home for Christmas that year. I didn't tell my parents anything until I was about to leave. And so I told my pastor at the time, I said, listen, I got the hive. A bee has bitten me, and I have the hive. He was like, CJ, I said, I know. I said, I just need you to be here to mediate me telling mommy and daddy. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know what they're going to do. The bee that bit me was a male bee. So I'll make it real clear for people. Like, I wonder how he got it. It was, that's what happened. Funny enough, I ended up finding out who gave it to me. The person's name was Eli. I said, now, God, it's like, this is Eli, of course. Eli. I said, so you would name the person after you at this point when she's okay. Haha, very funny. Very witty. You get one. And I sat there in that office, and I told my parents, and I was assured there was a good chance they would disown me. Now, mind you, I have fantastic parents, so it wasn't an indictment to them, but it wasn't. It was the the reality that HIV then, even in the early 2000s, very taboo still.
Mm-hmm.
And the kind of conclusion that, oh Lord, he been sleeping with niggas. And it's like, yeah, I know y'all thought I did, but I definitely did. Sorry. And so, oh Lord, I'm sorry for saying the N word on your podcast. He's
You're
been sleeping
fine.
with info. And I knew that either one of those things could break it. And my parents did what they always do. They loved me. And we cried. And they were more scared for my health than anything else. And it was a lot. It was a lot. In the midst of all of that, I went to a church, and the leadership there was saying, God's got this taken care of. Don't worry about it. You're going to be fine. You'll be healed. You're healed already. I went and got my stats checked, and it read as undetectable. And not understanding that undetectable does not mean negative. Mm-hmm. And the people who were around me didn't know that undetectable didn't mean negative either. So I walked around saying, I'm healed. For around 10 years. Had 3 beautiful children. Negative. Ray. Negative. I thought, hey. And I would go and I would share my testimony. And this is the answer to your question. And they were like, I thought that the first HIV was it. No, this is the answer. I had to set it up for you. I hadn't been feeling well. I couldn't understand why. I've always worked a lot. So at that time, I think I was working like 70 hours a week. And it was salary. So it was like one of those, if you work 80 hours, it's not going to be enough. And so I was working crazy hours. And I just thought I was exhausted. And I was getting sick. And I went, and Ray was like, no, I'm taken to the hospital. Went to the hospital. And they said, we need to admit you, Calvin. I was like, admit? This is exhaustion. They said, your T cells are low. I was like, T cells are low? What do you mean? I'm healed. T cells are below AIDS level. Mm-hmm. And I said, no. Because the people at the church said not to worry about it because everything was fine and the Lord had healed me. And if the results said this, and it was the longest depression I'd ever had. It was terrible. I wrote on my funeral plans. I reached out to every person who I wanted to be a part of my services. Like, Cal, we ain't trying to hear it. I said, listen, I understand that you're not trying to hear it, but I need you to know what I want. I sent my best friend a list of desires. Said, I do not want a funeral. I want a memorial service. Y'all eat, y'all drink. Make sure the bar stay open for the people. Have a good time. Remember me well. But I don't want nobody being sad around here because it's done. I've lived my life, and you all coming to look at me in a box I said, now listen, if they want to put me in a box for a day, you rent that thing. You rent it out for the services and you put it back. Because we ain't going to put $10,000 in the ground. We going to pay for $1,000. Let me lay in there for a second and then put me in the oven. And just spread me around. Don't spend no whole lot of money on no coffin. I said, Cal, I'm serious. I don't want that. And so I made all those arrangements. Because at the time, I didn't think that was even an option. AIDS? How? I'm healed. And I had, from a very young age, suffered with suicidal ideation. Just not wanting to be, just not feeling like I fit in. And I always had to fight it. And in that season, I was like, Calvin, you really can go. Like, your kids will be fine. They are, between Ray's parents and your parents, they're very well taken care of. Between, all your friends will make sure they're fine. They'll be okay. It'll hurt, but they'll be fine. You just go. And there were just times where it was like, well, I would bargain with God and say, man, listen, so I won't commit suicide, okay? But how about you just not wake me up tomorrow? So I've not done anything wrong. It can be a natural thing. I'm going to just go to sleep and I'm going to just stay asleep and just don't wake me up. And I get up the next morning and was like, I thought we had a degree. I thought that you and I decided that I was just going to stay in bed and that was going to be the thing. And it wasn't. And I have a very, very open relationship with my daughter, with all of my children. I talk about Melody probably more because she's older. And so we have a lot more discussions around a lot more things because she has the capacity for it. And I said, Daddy, what's wrong? I said, Pumpkin, I don't know. I'm just tired. I'm really tired. And Gabriel, the good old messenger angel prophet, he said, Daddy, I don't want you to go. I was like, Daddy, I said, what, baby? I don't want you to go. I don't want you to go. So what are you talking about, baby? He said, I don't want you to go away. I was like, I'm not going in. I said, oh, beautiful boy. How dare you have discernment like your father? How dare you use your gift on me? And he could feel it. He could feel that I was really close to making the decision to just be out of here. And hearing him say, I don't want you to go, Daddy. And he broke down in the back seat. And this is not from me telling him anything. He just felt it.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, even though there are suicidal ideations are things that people deal with sometimes their whole lives. And so if there's somebody who is listening to this, that's dealing with it, you are brave. You're not a punk. You're not a weak person. You're not a coward. You are brave because you continue to say no, even when you want to say yes. And that's bravery. That takes a lot. To keep on waking up when you want to stay asleep, that takes a lot. And hearing them and hearing my baby, I said, I could never do that to them. I could never do that to them. I could never, ever make them feel like they weren't enough to stick around for.
Mm.
And so I stuck around. And in the moments where it comes back, it's like, Calvin, you're 37. You have no degree. You don't get a whole lot of money in your check. What you doing? And that sense of worthlessness rushes in. And it's just like, okay, maybe today I'll just stay asleep. I remember that I have 3 little people who will be devastated if I didn't wake up and wake them up and fuss at them for not getting up so we can go to school and fuss at them for watching their phones instead of brushing their teeth. They would be devastated and they would wonder, was I not enough to make my daddy stay around? And my babies are everything. They are the kindest, sweetest, most brilliant little humans in the world. And I would hate for them to walk around life with this myth that they weren't enough for their father to stick around. So that's what gets me up. That's what anchors me. That's what made me leave that hospital. Now it was a good old spiral of depression and 40 pounds. After that diagnosis, I was like, oh, this is something else. This is, mm-mm. And so, we went through a couple of wine bottles some nights, and brownies, wine and brownies. He got chunky. He got mighty chunky from that depression. And I was like, God, I've asked the question. So listen, if you are going to give me depression, I want the skinny people's depression. I want the kind of depression where you can't eat and you're just so distraught that you just don't even think about food. Like, I want to be depressed and be 190. Don't depress me and go to 300. That's the wrong kind of depression. You need to give me the not eating kind, and that's what I got. But my kids, my babies, understanding that me being there for them means something to them. So even when me being here doesn't feel like it means much for me, and I feel like I don't contribute enough to the world, I know that my babies,
Wow. First off, appreciate your transparency. I mean, to share something like that, and to do it unapologetically, being transparent, pouring your heart out as you've done this evening. I truly don't take that for granted, and it just makes me admire you that much more that you trusted um, me, you trusted my platform to be able to share at that level. So I appreciate that. Somebody's going to be blessed by just everything that you've said up to this point, needing to hear such rawness in your story. Because there's a lot of hurting people. They
yeah,
may not have the same diagnosis that you had, but they're hurting at that level in a different kind of way, and they need to understand that life is still worth living, even in the most torrential of storms. You had every reason in your human condition to say, you know what, just let me go to sleep and not wake up. You had every right to feel that way in your human condition, but we serve a God that says, I didn't create you, just for all of these gifts that I imparted in you to just go to waste. So yeah, you might have this, this ailment, this illness that you're dealing with. You might have this challenge over here, this struggle over there, but you have me. And so as long as you got me, then it doesn't really matter all the other stuff that you got going on. Yeah, it may be tough. There may be some days you're not 100%. But by having me, by being in a relationship with me, by being in connection with me, I ensure that you're 100%, even when you don't personally feel like you're at
mm,
100%. So knowing that I'm here and knowing what I bring to the table, knowing what I have to offer, knowing that I love you unconditionally, you're good to go. And oh, by the way, if you need one more reminder, let me, as they say, out of the mouths of babes, let
yeah,
me allow them to pour into you, because the very thing that they were able to pour into you was the very thing that you struggled with for most of your life, was not feeling like I was worth it, like I was good enough. And here you had these beautiful children telling you, yeah, you are, and we're going to feel some kind of way if
yeah,
you check up out of here sooner than planned. um We may understand that death is going to be inevitable. It's going to happen to us all, but we're not trying to have you speed it up. We're not trying to have you to put it in the express line. You know, let it play its course and we'll deal with it when that time comes. But for right now, we got some stuff to do. We got some memories to share. You individually have some works to do, which you are doing. And, so again, we can go back and forth about, why me, why this, but sometimes even in those moments, we have to, in asking that question, why me, we have to ask the question, why not me? Because with all of our stuff, with all of our things that we go through, all of our challenges, would you change place with Jesus on the cross? Would you change place with some of the other,
Yeah.
heavy stuff in the world? I mean, we just have to be grateful and thankful that God just allowed us another day, another opportunity to do life, to be of a blessing to someone, to be there for someone, and He's allowing that for you to do. I was just even reflecting on, and some people may consider this to even be a reach, but I don't. I was just even thinking about the dynamics of your family and their names.
Mm-hmm.
If the names, it's funny because Pastor was just talking about that this past Sunday about the importance of the name and how back in biblical days, names were just not randomly given. It was to speak
Right.
of who you are. So then I think about you when I think about you speaking about Ray. And the first thing that came to me was like a ray of sunshine. I think
Mm-hmm.
about, I think about melody. And the first thing that comes to me about, I spoke about it at the top of the show about the melody of your voice. Not only just hearing you talk, but I've heard you sing too.
Mm-hmm.
I think about, Gabriel. Of course, my daughter is Gabrielle. I think about, you know, the significance of his name. I think about the
Yeah.
significance of Zoe's name. The pairing of all of you together, that's, again, I know people in the world of the world think he's reaching, that's just a coincidence. No, it's not.
Let me tell
No,
you
it's
something.
not.
Let me tell you something. So when we first, with Melody's name was actually Josana at first. That was her name, Josana, because I was Joseph and Ray was Rihanna and we were Josana, and that was going to be our baby. And our parents, both of them, was like, "That's ghetto." It's like, "That's not ghetto. It's an English surname. It's a very fine name, but that's ghetto." And they all prayed, "Please, God, do not let our grandchild be named Josana. We will love her, but please don't let it be Josana." About 2 weeks before she was born, I was praying. I said, "What is like? So should it not be Josana? Is that not the name?" Her name is Melody. I was like, "Okay, all right, Melody, Melody." So I said, "Hey Ray, baby's name is Melody." That's what the spirit said. Baby's name is Melody. My best friend gave her middle name, which is Amaris, which is an assortment called by God. So it's an assortment of sounds called by God. That was her full name. And whenever she was a baby, all she would do was hum,
Mhm.
hum and coo, my Mel Bell. When Gabriel
Wow.
was, whenever Ray told me that Gabriel, she was pregnant, um, I was like, "Okay, well, it's a boy." She told me when she told me I'm pregnant. I was like, "All right, it's a boy. His name is Gabriel. That's who he is." It was that instant. And he's my messenger. He's my trumpeter. And Zoe, uh, one of my best friends had died suddenly. It's actually the 10th anniversary of her passing. Um, and Ray found out that she was pregnant with Zoe days after Leash passed. Um, and Ray told me we're in the car downstairs in the parking lot. She was like, "Well, I'm pregnant." I said, "Oh no." "Oh no, you're not." Because it had taken 4 years between, Melody and Gabriel. We had tried to have Gabriel sooner because he wanted the kids to be closer together. And so I figured it'd be another 4 years, not a couple of. No, you're not. I don't know who did that, but it wasn't me. Nope. Mm-mm. And she looked at me. She said, "You're grieving right now, so I'm gonna go upstairs, and then whenever you come upstairs, you better have a better answer." I said, right. And I sat down there because it was hard. My friend had passed, it was random. That's another one of those God moments. The day before she passed, she sent me a random message and said, "I'm thinking about cutting off my locks." She had beautiful locks. One of the reasons why my hair is locked down is actually because of Alicia. And I said, "Oh, new glory." She said, "I knew you would get it." And then she passed. And so it was heartbreaking for me. But I got up the stairs and I said, "All right." I said, "I'm happy. I'm sorry about that." She said, "I know you're going through a lot, but you get happy." I'm happy. And I said, "It's a girl. And her name is going to be Zoe. Because God has given us life or death." And so I always used to talk about the importance of naming. So much so that a friend of ours, when she listened to one of the talks that I gave, they went back and started seeking the Lord for the name of their children. Because they were just, looking at cute names. And she was like, "Well, now I understand. I guess so." And so they made it a principle of making sure that they were going and praying for a name to match with the purpose of their child. And so when you said that, I was like, that's so funny, because that was something that was really important to me. As I read the Bible, I would always see these people who were named, and the name so aligned with their purpose, right? So aligned with who they were within the world, within, the spirit, that I understood the names had to be powerful. One of my favorite stories, and I'm sorry for saying
good.
One of my favorite stories was the story of John the Baptist and his father. It's 7:30. I'm sorry, I'm blanking. Not Zacharias. Y'all know John the Baptist's daddy, Elizabeth's husband. He was it Zacharias? Is that his name? I'm sorry, y'all. It's gonna bother me, but it's okay. He goes up to the temple, and Elizabeth couldn't have. She was having a hard time conceiving. Angel tells him, "You're gonna have a child," and he doesn't believe. Goes back. They do the necessary. She becomes pregnant, and he is struck dumb. Cannot talk. Whole pregnancy. And as it is a custom in Jewish tradition, they wait that period of days. I want to say it's 8 days before they formally name the child. And Elizabeth says his name is John. And there is this uproar because in that custom, a child's name was often associated with, certain family names, certain names of certain patriarchs and things of that nature. And there was no John in that lineage. And so they were like, it should probably be, the father's name. And the father asks for a tablet. And on that tablet, he writes, his name is John. And the minute that he writes his name is John, his mouth is open. And he begins to prophesy and speak about his son and speak about what his son would do. When you understand the power of naming something properly, the power of naming something properly allows the thing that has been shut up in you to be unlocked.
Mm.
Some of the reason why some of the things that people have tried to do and they've been struggling with, some of the reason why it's not been open to them is because they're still calling it the wrong name. It wasn't that he was born that opened the mouth. It was that he understood the name. If I know what to call it, it can be unlocked.
Mm. Very powerful. You're absolutely on point with that, man. Absolutely on point. And I know oftentimes we, in telling these type of stories, we're oftentimes speaking about this being random and that, but it's not. We need to modify that and say, no, it's not random. It may feel that way, but
Yeah.
it is very much divine. It is very much God moving in those situations and circumstances, even when it doesn't make sense to us in the moment as to why is it happening like this. But that's who God is. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. And so, the more and more we go through this walk with him, the more we understand. And as you shared in sharing that story, sometimes God will, if he needs to, he will have to make us quiet until we get it, because sometimes we do a little too much talking, we do a little too much overthinking, and sometimes I got to sit you still.
Yes.
He has to sit us still to process and take it in, and then once then we can, move forward. Even when you said about, again, talking about the names and and um and the power behind that. I was just even sharing this just recently. I have a friend of mine from childhood who, from time to time has gotten on me, even with regards to my podcast. I'll say, because sometimes I'll find myself saying, I just got my little podcast, I'm just doing, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and she'll be like, no, you need to stop that. This whole thing about there's nothing small, there's nothing little about what you're doing. I know you may be new to this. I know it may seem little because, here you are operating out of your little space in your house and doing your thing, very, very basic setup and all that. You don't have all the flash and the glam to it. But don't call it little, because what you're doing is not small. What you're doing is not little. This is different. This is not the normal type of podcast like you're speaking it to be. And so you need to start speaking it as to what it is. And then, as you stated, once you start speaking to that, once you understand the power behind what you've called it and what it represents, whether we're talking about a podcast, whether we're talking about the name of a child, a name of some other purpose or calling that you have, once you start identifying it for what it is, that's when you start to see it all play
Yeah.
out. That's when it becomes something well over and beyond anybody's imagination. Even
Yeah.
what you thought it was going to be is 10 times more than that. And it's coming from all different directions in such unexpected, such magnificent, such marvelous ways. And we have it all to God to give the credit and the glory and honor to for that. So you're exactly right. The name, understanding the power of the name, understanding the significance of it all of those things matter. We got to put all of that together in order for it to manifest the way that it
Yeah.
does, the way that it was intended to, the way that it was designed to. So very powerful stuff. Very, very good points that you're making there. Um, when you do find yourself going through adversity, and again, I know we've talked about some heavy stuff this evening, but our storms aren't always super heavy. Sometimes it's just day to day, regular annoyances that we got to deal with, challenges that we're up against, just over the course of life itself, just being life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious to know from you, what is it that you like to do? What is sort of your regiment, your routine, if you will, that you like to do when you find yourself facing with challenges and adversity? What is that process that works best for you?
Yeah. So it's going to seem really simple, but uh, deep breaths and meditation. That is the thing that helps me the most, because what it does, specifically with breathing, it cuts off the pace of the anxiety. And so if my heart is going a mile a minute, I stop the cycle by introducing a new cycle.
Mm.
And so I breathe until I'm calm. And then we just sit there. We sit there and we think about it and we journal. And sometimes it's a journal entry, sometimes it's a poem, sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a scene, sometimes it's just quiet. Because oftentimes what's happening is a situation is run out in front of us and we're trying our best to catch up to it. But in that, we're not giving ourselves a full ability to really consider it.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, we're trying to give an answer, but we're not clear. Our minds are foggy. And so I've learned to take a breath and to think on whatsoever is lovely and pure and of a good report, and get grounded in some gratitude, things that I'm grateful for, things that I am, happy about, because, and that's one of the scriptures that I wish people would really lean into more. To be grateful in all things because that's the will of the Lord concerning you. You have so many people, God, what is your will for my life? What should I be a preacher? Should I be a teacher? Should I be a da-da-da? Be grateful.
Mm.
Be grateful. Because the thing is, whenever you learn to be grateful, you're then going to figure out the inventory that you have. When I know what I'm being grateful for what I have, that means I'm aware of what I have. I know what I got going. I know that. Now when the moment comes and it says, hey, Moses, what you got in your hand? A rod. All right, now you're going to use this rod this way. Now I don't have to figure out, what do I call it? What do I have? I know what I got. I know what I got because I've learned to be grateful for everything that I have. Now, when opportunity calls upon what I have, I don't have to fret about wondering what I got. I know what I got. And I know how to use it. And so gratitude just kind of helps you take inventory of your life. And that level of awareness, that level of understanding puts you in a better opportunity to do the kind of thing that you want to do, to do your purpose well, because you really have inventory. There are a lot of people who don't realize that they have a lot of great things inside of them. But because they're not grateful for it and they want everything outside, they want to, figure out how to get this and that they don't have, they don't realize there's a stockpile of greatness in you that you've not had access to because you're not grateful about it. You're not excited about what you got. And so whenever things get really bad, I take a deep breath and I use that time to really meditate on, this is what's going on. This is good. Okay. Now this isn't great. This is good. How can I capitalize on this? What you want me to do with this? Teach me what to do, how to be a good steward of this thing. Because that's right, that's the path forward, Gratefulness leads to stewardship. And whenever you really look at, any of the kingdom parables, all of them were about stewardship. All of them. Whether it was stewarding a relationship with father and son, whether it was stewarding a coin, whether it was stewarding a sheep or seed, it was about how well do you manage what you're given. And you can't be a good steward if you're not grateful for what you got. And so whenever you're overwhelmed, oftentimes just because you're not remembering, no, I got some stuff. I got some good stuff. And even though it's not doing what I want it to do, if I remember how to use it properly, it will not fail me.
So true. So true. That's one of them ouch moments that you gave right there. We got to learn to be, we got to be grateful for what we have. Especially in these days and times, we're so quick to complain about this is not going right. That's not going right. We don't have this. We don't have that. Again, this was one of those things I was just sharing the other day with somebody about how we stand, and even pastors talked about that, how we'll stand in front of a full refrigerator and a full pantry of food and say we don't have anything to eat. How
Mm-hmm.
we'll how we'll stare in a closet full of clothes and say we don't have anything to wear.
Yeah,
Just things like that. We take for granted just even waking up every morning like it's supposed to happen.
yeah,
And so that gratitude piece, I love that you highlighted that as part of your process. And I think that's something that if we don't currently have that in our arsenal of how we work through adversity and challenging times, that's definitely something that we want to plug in. And of course, the breathing and the taking that moment to just kind of calm and settle. Because if we're in our emotions, if we're all worked up and wound up, we're not going to have a clear and level head to to
mm-mm.
to attack whatever it is that's before us that we need to do. So whatever that thing is for you that helps you to calm down, take a few breaths or whatever, center yourself. And so
Yeah,
once you're in that space, now I can say, okay. And then I think that's the last piece of what you just said there. Ask for help. Quit trying to be Superman, Superwoman, trying to do it all on you. That's the beauty about having that relationship with God, because I don't have to figure it out.
yeah,
Once I calm down, and He'll wait for me to calm. You calm, okay. Now tell me what's up. Even though He knows what's up, tell me in your words what's up and what you need, and then
mm-hmm.
let me direct you. Let me guide you through this.
Yeah,
We together are going to work this out. I'm not expecting you to do it by yourself. Quit
yeah,
trying to do it by yourself, because you're probably going to mess it up anyway if you do it by yourself, and you're going to wear yourself out, exert unnecessary energy that you didn't have to use. Let me be there for you. That's what I want to do, is be there for you, because I love you that much. I love you unconditionally. Let me show that to you. But you show that to me in return by just trusting me. Just give it to me. Let
yeah,
me handle it. And we'll together we'll work through this thing. So very powerful points in what you shared there. So Calvin, if you had a chance to speak to that younger version of yourself, all the things that you've gone through, challenges that you've had to endure, mistakes that you've made. If you could speak to the younger Calvin, or even perhaps somebody right now that might have an opportunity to tune in to our episode, and they're in that some of the dark spaces that you spoke of, those challenging things, maybe not feeling their worth, not feeling their value, not knowing, how to properly handle challenging and adverse moments in a healthy way, not knowing how to express themselves with, unapologetically, and feeling like they have permission to do so. What would be your words of encouragement or advisement to your younger self, or somebody like your younger self that's going through right now?
yeah. Um, I think my words would be, you're enough. You and your specific self is enough. Um, Stop trying to be like what do you think is good, or what you think um, is the standard. Figure out who you are, and believe that. Believe that who you have found and what you got going for you is valid, and it's valuable, and it's enough. And you don't have to perform anything for anybody. You don't have to. Um, you don't have to butch up. You don't have to drop your voice, you know, 4 octaves so you can sound manly. You don't have to, try to change the way you do certain things because you feel like that's what everybody wants you to be. There is a you that is unique and specific. And if you fail to find that you and be that you, the whole reason that you exist is missed.
Mm.
If you fail to be the you that you are supposed to be, whole reason for you being here is a missed opportunity. And you're too good to be a missed opportunity.
Love that. Love that. Very well said. Very well said. We got to learn not to people please, but to
Yeah.
God please. Um, Not worry about living up to a worldly standard, but living up to a godly standard. Like I said, being your true, authentic version of you. And if that makes you be the only one in the room that's like that, take that as a positive. Don't look at that as
Yeah.
being a negative. It's a reason why you're unique. Each of us should be operating as unique beings, but unfortunately, we're too busy chasing the crowds, following the trends, trying to be with the latest way of being and
Yeah.
doing. And sometimes it actually should be the total opposite. It should just be you that God created you to be. Be grateful for that, and
Mm-hmm.
and use it to the best of your abilities, to your greatest advantage. And if you're unsure about how to properly navigate it, he's there to help you to direct you to do so if you're confused about it. Because again, you don't have to figure it out by yourself,
You
but you
don't.
also don't have to solicit 10, 20 different opinions about how it should be. Now, yes, it's okay to have sound counsel around you, to have a
Mm-hmm.
circle of people who genuinely want the best for you and genuinely will be straight up with you, tell it to you like it is. You need that kind of space, but not necessarily somebody that's trying to control how you do, but instead imparting and pouring into you in a positive way so you can make the most sound decisions and guidances in what it is that you are walking into, however God is going to lead you to do so. So very
But
good stuff, man.
what you said, if I could just piggyback on what
Yeah,
you said,
absolutely. Go ahead.
but you want people who are able to see the thing that is in you and to be able to give you bullet points, questions, possible ways of processing something. And the thing is, like as a coach, right? My my father, he saw raw talent in athletes, and he was not there to teach them their style. He was there to teach them technique. Now you may, dribble how you dribble and shoot how you shoot, and you have your own swag of how you approach, the game. But what he did was, I'm going to give you the tools that you need to have a fundamental game. I'm going to make sure you know how to, have a good follow through. I'm going to make sure that your form is right. I'm going to make sure, we condition you properly so that you can stay in the game and you can be successful when you do it. But your style, I'm not there to shape that.
Right.
I'm there to give you technique to be successful. And you need those people in your lives who they're not trying to shape your style. They're simply there to say, your elbow is out. You got to pull it in. You got to make sure that the form is right so that no matter what the style you have, the technique and the form will never fail you. So never ever go to somebody asking them to give you a style. Your style is from you. Your style is spirit. Your style is given. Your style is divine. What you need is people around you who know how to play the game properly and who can give you some good understanding on how to do form stuff, how to do technique stuff. Because style comes from God. And the minute that you start taking other people's style and start trying to adopt that to you, you become like David in Saul's armor. And you can't do it. And the funny thing is, David's style only needed a slingshot and one stone, even though he got 4 backups. His understanding of getting wise counsel may have put him in a position to have somebody else's armor on. But he was like, no, I can't do it like this. What I'm going to do, the game hadn't changed, but how I play it is different. So the form in regards to how I defeat the enemy, I've gotten that from being the shepherd. I've gotten that from watching my father. I've gotten that from watching my big brother. I've gotten that from understanding how to defeat the bear and the lion. That did something for my form. My form is sound, but my style, all this armor, I know that that's what you think a warrior is. That's not my style. So understanding the voices around you should be there to help you with your form, but never go to them for your style.
Very well said. I love that. Love that. The fundamentals, the foundational, the basis, that core. Do you have that together? Then we can pretty it up and flash it up and all of that. But if you don't have the basics intact, and where are you getting that basics from?
Yeah,
Where are you tapping into that at? If it's not from the right source, if it's not, we talk about that foundational basis. We could build, if you build a house on the proper foundation versus build a house just straight on the dirt,
yeah,
it doesn't matter how beautiful it is. It's not going to hold up
that's
because there's
right.
nothing. It's not on solid ground. It's not. It's not properly. It's not properly rooted. It's not properly grounded. So going back to the very beginning of our conversation, that's the very first thing that we talked about.
Yeah,
Everything that you are, everything that you do, how you're able to navigate, not because you're perfect. You're able to get through and go through and overcome and withstand all that comes at you because of the foundational basis. All starting with
yeah,
Beatrice, all starting with her and with your parents, and they built that. They made sure that foundation was intact. They made sure your fundamentals were intact.
yeah,
So all the stuff you talked about, all the stuff that you didn't talk about, that's hit you, you're able to still be here, sitting upright, speaking to it because of that those fundamentals were in place. That's something that can never be taken away from you once it's there. Once it's
yeah,
instilled in you and once you understand it and you know what you got to work with, it doesn't matter how big the storm is now. Bring
yeah,
it. Bring it. I'm not even tripping anymore. It doesn't even phase me anymore because I know I'm going to be all right because of what I stand on. Everybody nowadays want to talk about I'm standing on business. Well, that's
yeah,
cool
no
and all.
business.
I'm standing on business. Okay, that's cool. But there's something else that you need to be. Are you standing on God? Are you standing on,
Yeah,
everything that He represents? Because if you're standing on that, then as you use the example, you can be that David that can take down Goliath with just your slingshot and your stone. It
yeah,
don't matter. It don't matter, and you can do it in your own unique way. But again, foundationally, I'm sound. Foundationally, I'm intact. The fundamentals are in place. So
yeah.
beautiful, beautiful advisement and encouragement that you should share it right there, my brother. So, man, it has been a true pleasure. I mean, and that's saying it lightly, man, to have this conversation with you. I mean, we've spoken on many occasions, but we've never had a chance to have it at this level of
Yeah.
intensity and length. And I'm so glad that not only that I reached out, but more importantly that you accepted, for us to have. We could go on for hours talking. It's just, but you just have a great insight to life, to how to deal with challenging moments, and just how to just your approach, man. It's just beautiful, and it's worthy to acknowledge and appreciate. And I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing as you have, and just being a blessing to us all. I know I've been blessed. I know my listeners are going to be blessed as a result of what you shared this evening with us. Truly, truly appreciate it so much. But before I let you go, as is customary here on the Blessings in the Streets podcast, we got to take time to celebrate you, to acknowledge you, to love on you, man. So if you got something going on right now or coming up down the way, whether it's business or personal related, doesn't even matter. Please share that with us, how people can connect with you, because we want to celebrate that. We want to acknowledge that and lift that up for you, of course, in prayer, claiming that victories in advance right now, that everything is going to work out like it needs to work out and then some. So what you got for us that we need to be checking out with you on?
Amen. So I have my acting studio, Actors Unlocked. I'm an acting coach. Love doing it. So if you're interested in acting, come out and check us out. We're virtual. So our virtual group sessions and then virtual one-on-ones. You are able to audit one virtual group session free. After that, you got to pay. But love doing it. A great group of people that I get to work with monthly. Writing for a couple of people. My NDA won't let me say much more than that, but it's prayerfully. I have a couple of really nice projects that can land in some really great places, and so I'm doing that work and have a couple of directing opportunities that are again kind of hushed because of non-disclosure agreements, but a lot of nice opportunities have come my way this year. Things that I always wanted, but I kind of feel like maybe that ship had sailed for me. And so they're there. They're just I'm gagged in the moment to be able to say much about those things. But the acting studio I can talk about, come see the acting studio. But if you want to know more about kind of the work that I'm doing and as I'm able to share more about those projects, my Instagram is CalDirects, CalDirects. You can follow me there. On Facebook, I'm just Calvin J. Walker. You can follow me there. And I have YouTube, which is Watchmen Media, WATCHMEN Media. You can follow me there as well.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm excited, man, about what you got going on, and looking forward to all these projects manifesting themselves and being out there. And of course, for those who tune in, if you're in that acting, field, you got that acting bug with you, or you're wanting to learn more about just the whole creative space, because Calvin is very diverse in a lot of these areas. And even if it's something that he's not directly working on at this time, I'm sure he knows people that he can connect you with that can help you foster and develop in those particular areas as well. So you got his connect information. Please reach out to him. Please support him. He's doing some great and magnificent things. And don't be surprised if you start seeing his name appear on some big time, whether it's big time networks, big time screens and stages and such. I know I'm looking forward to it, and I'm claiming that victory for him in advance. Just trusting that God is going to continue to keep his hands on you and guide you accordingly. You're a beautiful person doing beautiful works, and you got a beautiful family. And I'm just loving it, everything that you are and about and what you represent. And just happy for you, man. And I just want to celebrate that. And again, thank you so much for being on the show. And for my listeners, if you've enjoyed today's content, you love what we're doing here, please subscribe, please share, please comment, please like, because this is what it's all about. Blessings in the Streets podcast is designed to inspire, to encourage, to uplift, for us to be transparent in the sharing of our stories and our journeys, hoping that there'll be something that we share with you that will hit that right spot that you needed in your life. Maybe a challenging moment that you're going through, or you're just trying to figure out a better way to handle those adversity moments. Because the reality is we all go through our storms. They're going to happen. It's not a matter of if, but when. But how you respond to it is everything. And more importantly than that, who you're connected with matters the most. And so we've made it no secret. We've been very unapologetic about the importance of having God at the head of everything that you do. So if you don't currently have that relationship, I promise you, if you decide to do so, it'll be the best decision that you'll ever make, because he loves you unconditionally. He wants nothing but the best for you. He knows what we need to do and how we need to do it and why we need to do it. And you don't have to live this life alone without him. He's there for you. He wants to be involved in every aspect, every element of your life. So let him be that for you. Quit doing this life alone. Quit trying to be, again, Superman and Superwoman, because we were not created to be that way. All the power, all the glory, all the knowledge, all the wisdom rests with him. And he's the greatest comforter. He's the biggest problem solver. And last time I checked and last time Calvin checked, he's undefeated in all that he does. So if that's not enough for you, I don't know what else I could say, but I'm telling you, he is the one to be with. So with that said, remember, at the Blessings in the Streets podcast, this is the place where your story is your glory, where your relationships are relevant, and your journey is your joy. I am your host, Joseph B. Roberts. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, you keep fighting that good fight. You keep persevering. You keep pushing through. Keep leaning into God, letting him be your guide, your eyes, your ears, to navigate you through those storms, through those challenging times in life, through those big decision moments. Let him be involved in every aspect of it all. And I promise you, you won't go wrong. You won't go astray. and you will be not only a blessing to other people, but you will experience blessings upon yourself as well. So until next time, you take care of yourselves. I look forward to seeing you again on our next show. Take care and have a good evening.